Hey everybody, Adam Savage at Prop Store in London with Stephen Lane. Maybe one of the few people who has way more spacesuits than I do, and he's got an unparalleled collection. Stephen, tell me what this suit is from.
So this is from Event Horizon, coming up on its 25th anniversary. I can't believe it's 25 years. I got down on the set of this film, actually.
You did?
I did, yeah. Amazing experience to walk around the set of this one. A lot of blood and guts and gore everywhere.
But those sets were really large and
Huge.
ambitious.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, one vivid memory I have is after they wrapped on that. Do you remember the impaled bodies? They had all the impaled bodies with all the spikes coming out of them.
Yeah.
Those were just sitting on the back lot of Pinewood Studios for weeks, if not months afterwards. Just these guys out like this. But this is Lawrence Fishburne's suit. So this is Miller's suit, the #1 suit. And this was made by FBFX.
Our friends who did Covenant, Prometheus.
Yeah, The Martian, and all these great suits that have come subsequently. And this is, in fact, one of the first movie spacesuits they ever did.
I was going to say, 25 years, this has to be a very early... This is also a very unique film. I think it might be one of the only horror movies in space.
Yeah, I don't know, there's Alien.
Sure, Gothic, good. No, okay, maybe we edit that part out.
I think keep it in, man. We're definitely keeping that in.
That's awesome. But I mean, I'm sweaty now because I got that so wrong. It is really quite a unique piece.
Yes.
Right? And I really appreciate how strange that movie is and how much I love it.
Yeah.
And this suit is a lot of your suits are harbingers of, NASA and the development of the spacesuit.
Yeah.
But like a piece like this just isn't.
No, it isn't. And interestingly enough, this was also designed by Jon Mollo. So, of course, Jon Mollo was responsible for the Alien spacesuit, for all the Star Wars costumes as well. So this is one of the suits. He was involved with the production of this as well, and then made by FBFX, so they executed it. But yeah, I think it was just where people were looking at it and saying, okay, what can we do that's a little bit different? Where can we take this, and how are we going to interpret what it's going to be like, rather than just trying to follow the norms and the trends. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic piece of work. I've actually owned a few of these suits over the years. We did a deal with Paramount Studios, gosh, it must be right back in about 1998, 1999, where they were disposing of the assets from this film. They didn't really know what to do with it.
Wow.
It was sort of at a period where the studios weren't archiving, perhaps at the same pace, especially for productions out of the UK and Europe. They weren't freighting things back to the US. Right. So we bought all of the props and costumes that were available that were still in storage. They've been sitting in storage for a few years. But this costume didn't come at that time. So I had Justin, I had Peters, I had all the other characters there, including Cooper's. And actually the Cooper one that we had in the collection, I don't know how well you remember the film.
No.
He he gets ejected out into space and he's floating on a piece of debris and he has to blow his air tanks out and then sort of eject himself and force himself back to the ship. And so he had a whole mech built in, and this was all fully functional. It would pop out on his particular suit, and there was like a purge button where he's purging his air tanks. So it's incredible that, this is the sort of the main character suit, but even this didn't have all of the functionality that wasn't sort of plot specific, I suppose.
I'm also really impressed that 25 years later, the electronics are functioning beautifully.
Yeah, and maintaining those is often a challenge for us. We'll often come to a point where it's been resting for a few years and we haven't turned it on.
Yeah.
You fire it up and something's not working. And in fact, at the moment, we don't have the main lights on. They're actually disconnected for a reason. The battery packs, all the power source for this was located in the back of this.
Yeah.
It also drove the fans for the suit as well. So this has a vent system that runs in this. But the concept when filming this was that these were going to be powerful enough to actually use as the lighting for the filming rigs as well.
Oh my God! So they must be drained. They must drain the hell out of the battery when they're on.
Absolutely, yeah. It stays on for a few minutes. You literally see them dimming, and it was a big problem for them on set as well.
Wow.
Because they're carrying all this weight with all these batteries, but actually they weren't lasting any period of time. And I think, if I remember rightly, that they were motorcycle lights. So they had the right idea there. This could be really practical. And I'm right in saying that Jim Cameron had the same idea with Aliens. Wasn't the shoulder lamps? Wasn't the whole idea of the POV from the Colonial Marines that he wanted to use that light off the top of their shoulders to sort of see where they were looking?
They use it all over the place, and consequently, it's very hard to make that shoulder light dim enough that it's tolerable around humans.
Yes, yeah, that's the problem with this. If those were on, you'd be like, I can't see, I'm blinded. But yeah, it's got some great functionality in here. You've got all the lights in here. It's difficult to see. We'll get some shots maybe in a minute. The inside also has all this sort of light and functionality. And I think that's where they're starting to think about how are we going to address, the inside? Are we going to actually see inside the helmet at any point? We're going to have to sort of raise the bar a little bit with it.
Well, and speaking of Jon Mollo, not many people realize how much detailing there is inside the alien space helmet. Right, all the lights and the detailing here from Ertl kits and Space 1999.
Yes,
Mollo is just one of my all-time heroes. I actually wrote to him years ago to ask for some piece of costume advice about a suit of his I was replicating.
Oh, cool.
And I mean, it must have been great for FBFX to work under his aegis.
He was a lovely guy, wasn't he? I met him a couple of times. I mean, obviously his work on Star Wars as well is just, it's so highly regarded. We all love it. And but at the same time, he was a great guy to meet and just hugely talented. His illustrations, interesting enough, actually are quite basic. His actual sketches and things like that. But he has a very, specific style and was obviously very aware of what he wants to do. And I remember seeing in his Bibles, they had all the patches. He sort of sketched out all the patches. So have you got patches on the arm there?
We've got the Aerospace Command, Search and Rescue.
I remember seeing all the designs for those in his sort of costume design Bibles. Of course, there's the Miller patch on there as well, which and they're color coded, if I remember rightly. So Miller is red. So all these, you've got this sort of the referencing here. Cooper, I think, was orange. Peters was green, etc., etc. So
that's a theme that's extended in the alien suits as well. Each suit is a different color depending on who's wearing it.
I hadn't thought about that actually. And if you think about that, that's quite smart, isn't it? Because from a filming perspective, if you've got a lot of people running around in suits, and you can't see their face clearly, how do you get that instant recognition of who we're looking at?
It also has a lineage to NASA where the commander of an EVA has red stripes on their sleeves and their knees so that they're easily discernible by the other astronauts.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
This also, some of the suits in here have incredibly heavy construction. This one actually feels like it might be maybe one of, well, maybe not.
There's a lot of quilting in there.
There's a lot of quilting. Every single one of these is a heat stroke training unit, right?
Yeah, and this is probably going to be pre sort of, what are they?
The cool shirts?
The cool shirts.
Yeah, no, they didn't have
the
those.
suits. They didn't have that sort of technology at this time either, do they? So it's like, sweat it out, guys,
Can you imagine?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, got to get your performance out, and you're sweating, and you're, Veronica Cartwright talks about passing out on the set of Alien and like waking up in your costume.
Yeah. No, I could truly believe that. And I think they're using the sort of standard format where, a lot of what you see here is just dummy. So these are just sort of foam-filled boxes. They're not really got any practical use to them. Same with this. I think there's a scene where I feel like there's a star chart pulled out of this bag at some point or something like that. It's a long time since I've seen the film, and then this is just awesome, isn't it? I mean, that's just like, it still has. Is that
the Makita
label on it? They knew it was never going to be pulled out of there, so dress the top of it. Spray it in silver just in case, and then in it goes.
I love it, and your eye fills in the rest.
It does
as you're watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
I find myself, as I've talked to actors who have worn spacesuits, I find them in two camps. And it's there's not a lot of crossover. Some feel like I do, which is like a kid in a candy store putting on the suit and feeling super awesome. And the rest are like, I'm so over wearing this heat stroke quilt.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that. How long is it going to take to dress into this alone, let alone, as you say, then get to set, then actually get your performance out as well. You're going to be in this thing for hours, aren't you, at a time for any shot, really?
Yeah.
And but
can we look around the back?
Yeah, let's have a look around the back.
Again, more
some
more of FBFX's wonderful. I mean, the thing I love about their stuff is the closer you look, the more it rewards your attention.
Absolutely.
Right? That is one of the things they bring as a shop, and this is. As an early suit, it's all there, right?
Yes.
All the little bits of detailing and the little labels they've put on the stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, going back to the Cooper suit, I think it was, which had this sort of emergency function. So you flick the switch in there, and suddenly all of these start, dropping down.
Wow.
And then this is sort of like...
this is incredible.
Yeah, I love this detail up here where you're sort of looking at, I think it's sort of like an O2 use and things like that. Again, all of this fluctuates right up into the red, and this goes red here. So it's amazing the sort of thought process that they had about sort of how they were going to, as I say, change the detail on each specific suit, but make it practical for the Miller as well.
I tell you, the more I take in the details, the tireder I get on behalf of the original making team, right? Realize they made probably a dozen of these or more.
Yeah, no, there was, in fact, because there was a lot of stunt work in this. So I would say that we probably had, I mean, it's going back a long time, but I would say probably closer to 15 to 20. Wow. Now, some of those were partial suits.
Sure.
Some of them, they had sort of, this area was rubberized, you know, or they would have, the backpacks were rubber for the stunts and things like that. And so they had a lot of suits, and they had a lot of people out in space as well. You know, so there were a lot of people that needed to be dressed for it. Most of the time, they're in the suits. Look at this, man! This is like an air filter or something, isn't it?
Clearly.
Yeah. And then that's definitely like a drill or a garden utensil power pack there as well. I think that's definitely a battery that's on there. But
so this is, you know, and you like to point out that collecting suits like this is you upgrade over time. But is this have you reached the zenith with this one?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, once you get to Miller, once you're on, it says #1 on the suit, doesn't it?
Right. Like, yeah.
Okay,
I think
I'm there. But the Cooper one was great. I did love having the Cooper suit for a long time, just because it had all that additional functionality to it.
The practical stuff on the front.
The practical that was built into it as well. But I think in the main, when you're looking at the suit collection, you know, you're going to start with anything that you can get from a film, because it is really tough to get these, especially today. I mean, really hard. And so it's not like I can be picky and choosy and say, yeah, no, I only want if a Miller comes up, sort of thing. You know, so you start with whatever's available, and then maybe slowly upgrade over time if you can.
I'm curious, what is it about the spacesuit particularly that compels you to collect them?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, actually. I think that they're so emotive. You know, they're so evocative, aren't they? Because there's so much work that's gone into this. It's sort of telling so many different stories at the same time. And I think also I was very lucky. Quite early on in my sort of collecting days, I managed to acquire the John Hurt's spacesuit from Alien.
Yeah.
And I think having got that, I was like, okay, I've got to build around this. You know, I've got to fill out my spacesuit collection.
So
and I've
funny.
started at one, and I set the bar really high at that point in time. And I think just the aesthetics of them. I think, you know, who doesn't want to go to space? Who doesn't want to be part of what we're doing in space? And a huge sci-fi fan at the same time. So I think it was a combination of different factors, really.
Yeah, they really exemplified this sort of mix between costume and prop.
Yeah.
Right? Because of the amount of detailing, and they had to be worn. So I always feel a sense of empathy with the actors.
Yeah.
Both jealousy and empathy at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And then I always love the fact that humans can engineer our own hermit crab shells.
Yeah.
Right? We can evolve ourselves to do something that would be impossible for any other life form, survive in the vacuum of space. And filmmakers tell that story in so many different ways, as you've got here in the collection.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting perspective, actually. I hadn't really thought of it like that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah. No, it's great. And as I say, I think it's so tangible. Whenever you get up close to one of these things, and I haven't played with this suit for a long time. You know, it's been parked up here for a while, but just firing it all up again and remembering what all the functionality and the features are, it's a huge amount of fun.
Yeah, behind the scenes, I was seeing your excitement, and I feel you. I'm right there with you. Thank you so much, man. This is a beautiful, beautiful example.
It's a pleasure, man.
Hey guys, Adam Savage from Tested here. If you've ever seen the 6-inch ruler in inches and centimeters on my forearm and wanted one of your own, but you didn't want it to be permanent, well, today's your lucky day. You can now buy temporary tattoos of my measuring stick, my measuring forearm, at tested-store.com. Comes like this, goes on in about 30 seconds with a little water. The instructions are on the back. It comes off with rubbing alcohol, and hopefully it warms you up to the idea of permanently attaching a measuring device to your body, because I use mine every single day.